So we just learned what ASMR is, and now Steve is all over that ASMR bullshit.
Still don't
I,
know
I'm
what
curious
it
if
is.
that's an acronym for something.
I'm sure it is.
But you know, we skipped our intro.
Oh.
Steven.
Hey, BK.
How have you been, man?
Oh
It's
man,
been a busy week.
yes, and it still is.
And it still is. So before we get into today's topic, right, we want to do a few shout outs. First of all, this show, usually I do an intro for the shows. I'm sure you heard it if you ever listened to our show. When I say this show is brought
Wait,
to you
this
by,
is a show?
it's a podcast, it's a show.
I thought we were doing this for our own like benefit.
It is our own personal, spam bank,
But people listen to it
and watch it.
Oh crap!
Actually, our last episode got more watches on YouTube than listeners through the various podcast channels. But yeah, I do a little intro where I say this show is brought to you by typically Masada Tactical, right? And we give a shout out to a few other people, and then I say what the podcast is about. So I'm gonna stop doing that because I figure instead of it being kind of scripted, we might as well just tell people, right?
Right.
So Masada Tactical, always a sponsor. I mean, this office we're sitting is paid by Masada Tactical. The microphones, my coffee mug, Masada Tactical.
I took this one.
That's okay. Yeah, that's gift. You said you're gonna put a Masada Tactical sticker on it.
I will.
All right, next time. But yeah, Masada Tactical, for those that don't know, our parent company. It's a hybrid Israeli-American tactical training that encompasses teaching a variety of demographics from civilians, right, stay-at-home moms, to professionals who want to learn self-defense, realistic self-defense, not some functional, right? So not to knock any other martial art. We had a whole podcast about that a couple of weeks ago, but realistic self-defense can count here. We work a lot with law enforcement, military units. We have a security company, so if you're looking for security or private investigations, or if you want to join personal protection, or if you want to join our team, actually reach out to us.
Yes.
Also, a lot of training on that realm, right? We teach dignitary protection classes.
We got PI classes starting this year for anyone interested in
security
a career
basics. So if you want to get into the field, or if you actually already in the field and feel like, come on, you were thrown into the deep end and not really sure what you're doing.
And, it's unfortunate, that'll be another topic of discussion another time, but there's really no standard, right, in the state of Maryland. You apply for your cards and you get them.
Yeah.
Nothing says you have to meet this minimum amount of training.
Well, in theory, right, and again, as I said, it should be another podcast, but you're supposed to have worked for somebody.
Correct.
In theory.
But people get around it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
But you want to be proud of your work, your craft, and have a name for yourself. And that's one thing that Masada has. We have our name, so people who train under us, and typically, and they go apply other places. They're like, oh shit, you were trained by those guys. We had a few
for our dignitary protection class, right? We had a few people that took it, and they took on jobs as part of dignitary protection teams for government agencies,
and political figures,
some VIPs,
celebrities.
Yeah, so we're a small entity when it comes to that, but that's by design, and we keep our circle pretty small. And you and your ASMR, I don't get what that's supposed to do. Apparently, it's supposed to like make me feel weird or excited or something. I don't know.
Your presence does that for me.
Right, I'm excited just by being in a room with you, but not the noise you make. What else I'm excited to do? We have our healthcare division. That's the biggest one, right? So we're teaching workplace violence prevention to healthcare entities.
And we've worked with a couple schools now.
Corporate security and training, and vulnerability.
We're very flexible.
Yeah, everything that's security and educational related. Just the demographics we offer it to change.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned this in prior podcasts. The biggest thing is that we know how to articulate our skills to the crowd that's receiving it, right? Because not every person is a good instructor. They could be the best warrior and operator out there, but it doesn't mean they're going to be a good instructor.
Yeah, and not unfortunately, but we have an influx in the market of, a lot of veterans coming back from tours and retired law enforcement. With everything that's going on around the world, everybody's an expert, right?
Right.
So we can back it up academically. And then again, what's unique about us is that hybrid approach. We took my Israeli background and your American background, came up with skills that I would venture no other company has.
No, and and a lot of our skills were empirically based, right? Our experiences, something that was lacking, that we crossed the bridge and filled that gap so that other officers and operators didn't have to deal with it when they went through it.
100%. So this episode is brought to you by Masada Tactical. It is also brought to you by our own brand, Silver Savage, which as of this week
Yes.
The first line of products is out. You can find it. Is it on the Silver Salvage website or the
The
Masada website?
Masada, you can order on the Masada site.
Okay, go to the MasadaTactical.com website if you want to get the first two products are a pen balm and an inhaler.
Yep.
Both of them are made specifically for us by apothecaries. The idea is that it's all natural,
Yes.
essential oils. They're good for you. They're good for your body, good for your soul.
And they hit what we need, especially those silver savages out there, male, female, I don't care who you are. You know, if you're hurting like me with, so I mean, you've had surgeries too, but you have those constant pains. This is something you can wear actively.
Today I hurt my groin.
Yes, you did.
Deadlifting. Man,
I know for the first time in my life, I deadlifted the same weight as you. But only because you injured your groin.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to fix that because it's the only thing I had on you, damn it.
But yeah, it's active products, all natural products, and the inhalers naturally stimulate the mind, wake you up, so you can avoid those energy drinks and stuff like that are harmful to the body. And like BK said, it's all natural. So one thing that I love about the pain balm is I don't have to wash my hands. I just rub the remainder on my arms,
just like
and my
rubbing
chest,
stuff.
and well, it has aromatherapeutic qualities, right? Because it's essential oils.
Yeah, I'm sure that's why you do it.
Yes, and that was an added benefit to the product. So.
You know what I find that when we record this during lunchtime or early afternoon, we have coffee because we have to have a drink.
Mm-hmm.
I miss our bourbons.
Well, I told you I'm abstaining for a while.
I know you said that, but I'm not.
That's fine. I'll have apple juice.
That's fine. I'm just saying we are gonna have to start recording later, or it is 5 o'clock somewhere.
This is true.
And I'm Israeli, so
I'll get the non-alcoholic rum.
Israel is 7 hours ahead. So if it's noon here, it is 7 p.m. there. I'm 2 hours behind on drinking.
Yeah, you are.
Man,
you get some rum chata.
All right, and today actually we also want to give a shout out to two friends. They're not actually sponsors.
No,
we just happen to be wearing their shirts. They're very close friends.
Silver Savages, nonetheless.
Silver Savages on their own, so certainly fit us. So you're wearing a shirt.
Mainline Jiu-Jitsu.
Paul
Jackson,
Jackson, who's been on our podcast. I'm gonna tag his podcast if people want to listen to it. A phenomenal instructor and practitioner, jiu-jitsu and Krav,
and disc jockey, and major radio station.
Has his own podcast.
Yep.
So certainly check out Paul Jackson. And I'm wearing the shirt. I like that it's the Stronger Thing, which is play on obviously Stranger Things, which I've never watched.
Average Tim's
but it's Average Tim's Gym. So if you're in northern PA, Towanda, Pennsylvania, look for Average Tim's. Tim Smith, another close friend, who I like his shirts. He always comes up with cool designs.
Yes,
very smart and witty.
Yes, he does. Oh, and real quick, if you do follow Paul, I think he's got discount code on products right now on his podcast.
We need to get discount codes on products.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
So
we need to get some sponsors. So if you're out there listening and you want to sponsor the show, hit us up. So that said, I think we covered the sponsorship thing. Today's episode, we wanted to actually tackle, we started this podcast. It's called Silver Savage with the goal of providing information and skills to other savages. And it was completely selfish. It was you and I wanted to get better.
Right. Because I think the struggle was, right, you go from going 100 miles an hour, doing all this cool stuff, jumping out of helicopters, fighting, blah, blah, blah. But you get to a certain point, you're like, man, I can't do the stuff I used to do before. So you have a choice to make, right? Either shut down and, shut out, or redefine yourself, and find other ways to take that value and keep growing.
Yep. So our podcast from the very beginning had some other savages in it from various backgrounds, right? We naturally gravitated. It wasn't by design, just happened because of who we are,
right,
to the tactical world. But we had some other entrepreneurs. We had some fashion individuals like Odell. And we tried to diversify. And really what we wanted to do is we continue with this podcast. And we will have some more guests who specialize in their own kind of worlds, right? But really defining what a Silver Savage is.
Yes.
And really, I'll just say, for me at least, and I know when I came to with the whole thing, I want to start this podcast thing, is I want to learn. I'm always on a quest to learn more. And I found out I was my mid-40s. I'm a business owner, but, we've done pretty well considering the pandemic, considering everything preceding that, and starting from nothing. We've been in business for 2016 years now. It'll be 16 years in August. And when other businesses went down and so forth, we kept growing.
Yep, we adjusted and kept going.
But the idea is that I want to learn how to do that better.
Yeah.
Like, how do I learn from other experienced entrepreneurs? How do I stay in shape as I get older? How do I become a better practitioner in the skills that I teach? Investment strategies. I don't know what I'm doing. I have a little bit of investments here, a little bit there, but I'm like, how do I plan for the future?
Right.
And over the past couple of weeks, I think this new format really resonated with people, and I had people come and ask me for that advice, and I'm like, well, let's dive into it and see what we
Yep.
can come up with. So let's start today by defining the silver savage.
Well,
What would you say that is?
so I came across this quote once that resonated for me, when we started the whole Silver Savage. And, we figured that it's a play on words, right? We getting gray hair or the silver hair, and savages in the sense that we've made it this far, right? But it went gray hairs mean you cared, wrinkles mean you laughed, and scars mean you lived like a savage.
Oh,
And it just hit me. I'm like, man, I am a savage. I can check all those boxes, in one way, shape, or form. And obviously it goes deeper than that. But in a general, statement, that just hit me.
right.
I'm like,
And at the very first podcast that we recorded, I remember in your basement, it was a short 6-minute one or something like that. We actually talked about one thing that resonated with me, which is why I wanted to start it. And I think you said it in that podcast, was we're in our mid-40s and we may not be jumping out of helicopters, as you said, and so forth, but doesn't mean we don't have battles.
Right.
The battlefront just changed, right?
It does.
The landscape. Instead of being on the front lines, it's now how to care for my family, how to be a better business owner, how to stay healthy. So, all those skills that we may not necessarily have acquired, through our respective careers. I don't know about you, but nobody in the military or throughout my life taught me how to plan for my future investment wise, or how to be a better father.
No.
Right?
It's funny. I think that's changed now, and there's more opportunities for that. But
Educationally wise,
yes, our generation, no.
yeah, didn't get any.
Yeah, it was like I remember when I was transitioning out of the Marine Corps, they asked me my MOS, and I'm like, yeah, I'm an ordnance guy, build bombs, and the career planner's like, oh well, good luck, like
I can't help you.
Yeah, there's not much you can do, when you get out. So it was like, here's your plaque, here's your honorary discharge, and go forth and conquer,
Yeah.
and people don't realize too when you get out of the military, and it may be different in Israel. Some countries are different. But even after 4 years, if you don't do your 20, you get zero benefits. There's no benefits at all, other than an occasional 10% discount at a local hardware store.
So in Israel, it was interesting. And again, we're talking over 20 years ago at this point. But when I got out, first of all, it's mandatory service. So nobody asks you if you want to serve, if you don't want to serve, and nobody expects anything. A paycheck, if you can call it that, was just enough to maybe pay for public transportation and buy a candy at the local canteen or something. That's about it, right? Because in theory, everything is provided by the military.
Right.
Meals a day, you get a cot in a tent, but nonetheless, and when it came time to get out, when I was about ready to get discharged, they just started a whole process of giving a little bit of, like, you could attend a seminar, but there really wasn't much information there. And they gave you some money that was locked in an account. And at the time, you could only use it for education. So if you wanted to go to college, to start a business, or to buy a house.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But the money was minimal. I mean, we're talking 20,000 shekels at the time. So we're talking about $5,000. That's it. So after 3 years, you get that step in. And again, you got to articulate why, because if you don't have a good reason, you can't touch.
Yeah, and granted, you have the, at the time I had the GI Bill. Now it's the post 9/11 bill. So you had access to educational funds and stuff like that in the military.
The US does it a lot better. But the US also has a professional military. I mean, it is your job for those years, right?
Right. But here's the thing. When I got out, I didn't know there was a difference, right, between the military and the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? And there was no communication. So I had no idea that I had a time limit to use my GI Bill.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So by the time I was like, oh, crap, you mean I'm going to lose all my money if I don't use it? I literally lost out on thousands of dollars of educational funds. Yeah, because it was a time limit as to when I could use it. No one told me that. Again, now it's different. There's more information passed on.
I think also it's not can be transferred to a relative. You don't even have to use it.
Correct.
Yourself,
Post 9/11, you can give it to relatives. And the other thing was, like, I got injured in the military significantly. I was, you're this, and that when you get out. No one told me I was supposed to make a claim in the VA thereafter. You know what I mean? I thought it was like, okay, it's on record somewhere, and a lot of veterans deal with that here in the US. Like there's a disconnect, right? With these government entities
Got a
where
lot of
it should,
bureaucracy.
yeah, where it should be like, all right, this is what's documented in the military that you got hurt. We're going to transfer these files to the VA for their, oh, no, that doesn't happen. It's all on the individual. And some of these veterans will tell you these VA hospitals are horrible.
Right.
This is why veteran suicide is so high and stuff like that. A
You
lot
hear
of
the
them,
horror stories.
yeah, they don't want to deal with the pain anymore, the physical and emotional pain. And it's
Right.
unfortunate.
So what are your new battlefield, right? Your new landscape
Oh,
of war. What
man, that's a loaded question.
it is. So narrow it down. Give me one thing that you find that is a new challenge that did not exist 20 years ago that you need to deal with today.
Well, one, retirement, right? I was retired not on my accord. I was injured in the line of duty. I hate to say forced out, but I was essentially forced out. Which I'm fine with. It's not like I was left with nothing. I have a pension that I can provide for my family, which is my biggest thing, right? That's my
Right.
battle, providing for my family. That was my biggest concern through the whole process of surgeries and not being able to work. Like, how am I going to provide for my family? All right. So that's battle one. Then two is maintaining those relationships within my family, right? People change, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I realized I have changed significantly. Some of those changes were for the worse, and then they got better. And I think I'm in a very good place now, mentally. Going through therapy, physically taking care of myself. Apparently, I'm getting big, and I don't know it.
Okay.
So
It's all angles, though.
yeah. But it's everything's changed, right? Because now I'm retired. I'm not going 100 miles an hour, and I think I explained it to you. I'm like, it was very difficult for me, and I'm grateful that I got to be here working at Masada right after. Because I think if I had that pause, because everyone's like, you should have taken a month off, 2 months off, I think that would have been very bad for me, because it's like a freight train that's moving and moving and moving,
Right.
and comes to a sudden stop. Right, all those cars have to bump into each other, and that's literally what happens. It's what happens to veterans, first responders, etc. And man, that freight train of emotions and all the crap that I dealt with just hit me hard. And you saw me, you saw the transitions, the ups and downs.
Still do.
But again, now it's that battle of one, maintaining my mental and physical health, trying not to let that adversely affect the relationships with my wife, with my children, etc. Because my main battle is to provide for them, not just economically, but physically, emotionally, etc. And to be a good father. That's probably my number one battle right now. And we call it a battle. It's a goal. But it is a battle, right? Because I don't like saying no to my kids in the sense of like, hey, daddy, let's play a game. I'm going to drop what I'm doing and I'm going to play a game. But
you also have to set boundaries.
Correct. Exactly. And that's a battle, right?
Yeah.
Setting boundaries is a battle.
Sometimes the battle is internal.
Yes. And so I'm doing that. Like, today, where my son's working on his homework here at Masada, and I'm trying to get a workout to take care of me. Yeah.
While answering geography questions.
But I was able to do it, and
it was impressive. I'm not gonna lie.
It was pretty cool. But it's a battle, right? Because you don't want to sacrifice too much of yourself, because you want to provide for your children and take care of them. But at the same time, you end up doing that, whether it's the relationship with your spouse, because you're so focused on your kids and you're trying to focus. It is a battle, everything's a battle. And then again, economically, right? I'm retired, but that doesn't mean I'm living in the lap of luxury, right? I got to work. I got to provide. So, it's endless fronts, right, of fighting.
I find, I agree with you. It's funny, actually, before I get into my points of discussion, I think I told you, I went with my son yesterday to, I chaperoned cool. a day trip, right, for school. He's in fourth grade. He's a 10-year-old. And they went to a thing called Town, where literally it's a mock city. And you can see the businesses, Bank of America, Chick-fil-A. I mean, they're known businesses. I would assume they're sponsors of the program.
No doubt.
But a few weeks prior to going, the kids already started getting some lessons at school in terms of, this is how business works. This is how you write a check. This is the process of taking a loan and paying it back, so forth. So the day started for them with getting a mayor inaugurated, and then they had to all go to the bank and get a loan for the business. They got pre-assigned businesses and roles within the business. They had to go take a loan and then get the permits and then start manufacturing or selling their services or products and start paying the bills and paying back the loan. And my son happened to have been the CFO of an insurance company.
Sucks to be him.
And you see him sitting in front of they give him laptops, and
I saw the picture.
he has tasks, and he's starting to stress out. He's yelling. He's like, "We don't have enough money to pay the bills. We need to make more money. We need to sell more. Where is everybody? Why is nobody working?" And I'm like, "Welcome to my world."
Yeah.
That's the stressors.
You see, my kids would have robbed the mock bank.
Is that because of Puerto Ricans?
Yeah, no, maybe.
No, but I thought it was very interesting to see the chaos. As an outsider, like that's what our life is like all the time, right?
I mean, but it is chaos, right? It's just controlled
Sometimes
chaos.
not that controlled either.
No, it's not.
So I guess my biggest battle, right? So I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to have a good education, good upbringing. I enjoyed my service in the military for the most part, with all the bad experience associated. I gained a lot from it. And the biggest fortune I had was being able to start a business 16 years ago, right? So we're talking early 30s, and being successful enough that I could pay my bills, hire more people, and pay their bills. So now my biggest stressors are twofold. One of them is obviously all my staff. All my staff gets paid before I do. Still to this day, I don't take a paycheck, which everybody tells me it's wrong, but I got to pay everybody first, because I'm thinking I'll use you as an example, right? But you're an employee of the company, but you're not only one dependent. You have a wife and 3 kids. So there's 5 people,
right,
whose essential livelihood is dependent on my performance, right? And we have a few employees, right? And all of them have at least a significant other, and some of them have families. So that's a big responsibility. That's what I lose sleep over at night.
But that's called being a leader.
It's called being a business owner.
The burden of command, right?
Right. But then the other thing is, and that's the I guess the drive I'm on lately is, I'm lucky that we can pay everybody's bills and salaries, and some months are more stressful than others, but for the most part, we're up and moving forward in the right direction. Is for me is, how do I make it to the next level?
Right.
Because all the growth we've had, that's great. I'm not satisfied.
No. There's always room to grow.
Yeah, but I want, me. What's my biggest dream?
A yacht.
Yep. Right. So
I'm gonna have the gunboat that protects it.
So I'm gonna get that freaking yacht, but how do I get to where I get that yacht? Right. And that's a different battle for me, because I was not trained, never learned how to scale a business, how to grow it, how to diversify, all these terms that I'm now having to, I don't want to say battle, although that's exactly what we're doing, right? I need to navigate. And a term I just heard recently, which I like, is renegotiate my relationship with money, renegotiate my relationship with
and I've learned so much watching you. I mean, when I first came to Masada, it was just a martial arts gym.
It's just me.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I've learned, I always refer to you as my big brother, mentor, friend, this and that. And I've learned so much, because one thing I love about you, you push me, right? You've helped me along, and you've kind of, because you love me, you hand me the bone, right? But then there's sometimes like, well, fucking do it. I'm not going to do it for you, which lit a fire in me, because, I still, I think I told you an idea I had about a clothing line, for veterans and stuff like that, which I'm not going to give it out yet. But I'm like, you know what? F it, I'm going to do it. If it fails, it fails. I'll try it again. But I think it's a great idea, and it's to be coming soon, whatever. Right.
But I think you should.
Yeah. But it's savages learn from savages, right? Yeah. Because we're all cut from the same cloth, or at least same branches from the tree. Something like that,
And
in the words of our president, but
true.
Yeah, cut from the same cloth, in the sense that although those cloths may be different, they may be different types of fabrics, but they're woven together somehow, because they're serving the same purpose. So I've learned that, from being a savage. You can't just say, I'm too old for it, or I'm too tired, or this and that. No, if it's an idea, if it's a dream, do it, because if you don't, somebody else will.
Yeah, somebody else. And honestly, that also came into conversation in a conversation yesterday at this Beast Down thing. I was talking to one of the employees there, kind of telling them I think it's awesome what they're doing. And another parent was there, and suddenly talked about, the kids as they progress and going to college, and talking about college funds. And I said, you know what? I used to think of college funds, But over the past year, it morphed in my mind. If they want to go to college, great. But I don't think college is all that it's meant to
No,
be.
it's not.
And I'd rather have those funds for them to start their own business.
Hmm.
If my son came to me and said that I want to start a clothing line, right? Like, awesome. Here's some seed money, and I'll help you through it, because I think for you to try things out when you're young, fail whether you still can, right? Because for me now, there's a risk. If I fail now, I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about, I don't have that much time to recover from it.
Right.
But if you try and fail in the 20s,
And listen, to reinforce what you're saying, one, look at the Amish, right? Eighth grade education. After that, you're learning trade skills.
yeah,
To
and
support
they
the
make
family.
a lot of
Not the
money.
greatest example, but still,
But they make a lot of money.
yeah.
Their tables are phenomenal.
But I'm going to throw a shout out to a good friend of mine in New York City, Giovanni. His company is GONYC. He owns a printing company and does a bunch of other things. He was one of those, like, he's like, I'm not concerned about higher education. I have an idea. I have a passion. I have a dream. I'm going to go do it. And he's well known in the industry now. He's someone that I look up to when it comes to business questions and stuff like that. And he's just doing it,
Yep.
and, me, I'm full of useless knowledge, and I'm on that 15-year associates program. I'm still working on it, but I've never had a problem when it came to education. Is free, right? Pick up a book, read, learn. And that's always been my thing.
Plenty of resources out there.
Yeah. And you're seeing the transition. Even in the state of Maryland now, you can supplement higher education with experience now, because they're realizing that, it's not just in college.
And I will say, I have my undergrad and I have my master's, and I would like to get a PhD at some point, not because I need it. Obviously, I own my own business. Nobody's asking me for my diplomas or anything like that. But I do like learning. And
absolutely,
I feel going through a research project to get a PhD is going to be fun for me.
Yes.
But it's certainly not something that I would make.
I think that would be the fun part. Writing that dissertation is going to be your fun part,
right?
Doing that research.
But again, I don't think that people's employment should be dependent on whether or not.
No. And granted, we're not saying that it's not important, because I think we need to know the basics of structuring a paragraph, an essay, proper grammar.
You should be able to learn that before pre-college.
You should. And that's the thing. I think, I don't know how times have changed, but when I was in high school, I was taking college level classes in high school.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was being prepared.
My daughter does that.
Yeah, I was being groomed and prepared for college, and I was already receiving college credits while I was in high school.
That's awesome.
I don't know how that works now, or what they do now. I was in a program called the Academy of Finance, which prepared you for the business world. I know, shocking. I was forced into the program because I was like an honor. I was a nerd. Shh, don't tell anybody. Yeah.
Well, once you said you played the trumpet, I
did.
that out.
But that was when I snapped. Remember, I hit the dude with the trumpet.
But most nerds do.
No, they don't. They do other stuff with trumpets. Didn't you see American Pie one time at band camp? Oh, that was a flute, but whatever. But anyway, what the hell was that? I lost my train of thought now.
You're talking about the Academy of Finance.
But higher education, yes, it's important, but my problem is that you get stuff with a lot of useless stuff. I wish it was what I needed, what I wanted, not necessarily, okay, I have to do this because they say I have to do
but that's the thing about college, right? There's a lot of classes that are BS that they just like, oh, you got to take those. They're not electives or whatever, right? You got to take fucking, I don't know, history of rock and roll, which I enjoyed, but honestly, I'm like, there's zero value in it for me.
I always joke because, I was an adjunct professor for the community college. And when I was taking classes online, you write your biography and all that stuff. And the teacher's like, wait, you're an adjunct professor with a high school diploma and you're taking my class? I'm like, yep, that's just the way my cards fell. She's like, you could teach this class. I'm like, I probably could.
Right. That's funny.
But I got to get the credit in order to get the paper.
And you know what? I was listening to somebody else talk the other day, and he goes, from an employment standpoint, even if you had your bachelor's or didn't have the bachelor's, it doesn't matter. You put in the application that you have a bachelor's. I don't know that anybody ever checked that. Like, I don't know that anybody ever applied to work at our company, said they had a degree, which we never made mandatory anyways, but let's say they did. I never called the school and asked to see transcripts or anything like that. So I could say in an application that I have a master's in whatever. Nobody would know any different as long as I can back up whatever skill set I'm hired to do.
Right.
Then that's all that really matters at the end of the day. So why do we even make that mandatory? Now, I will say there are professions, let's say medicine. You want to be a doctor.
Oh, absolutely.
You need to learn the skill set, right?
Absolutely.
But even for them, I mean, we're wasting so much time to go to school for so many years just because they need to take all these classes that are completely irrelevant to what they're going to do.
To their specialized craft.
So yeah, I mean, they could be doctors a lot earlier, start earning a living a lot earlier. We have younger doctors, which increases the longevity of that doctor on the field, right? So, and I feel like we kind of missed the track on that one. So you said one more thing. You said about being a parent is probably one of the biggest battles nowadays, right? The battlefront. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's no training for that.
No,
There should be. If you have a license to drive a car or to carry a firearm, you should go for a test to how to be
they
a
don't
parent.
come with manuals.
No, and each kid is different. I mean, you know that you have 3 kids. I have 4.
And each one
is
is
a whole
very different.
game. Yeah. And I have this discussion with my wife the other night, and like we have 4 kids, varying in ages from 16 months to 16 years, and they each one is a different approach, and I need to navigate that, bounce back and forth, and talk about the battlefield in a war, man. You know, you have different tools for different missions.
Yeah,
and being able to identify the right tool for the mission is step number 1, right?
And I'll tell you what, if there's one thing I've learned, and my wife has said this many times to me, just remember it's not personal. You know, especially when it comes with kids. You know, I have to tell myself time and time again, the reason he's screaming at me and, you know, damning me to hell is because he's comfortable enough to do that, you know, because he feels safe or she feels safe letting out their frustration on me. You know, so I got to go downstairs, you know, punch class, eat nails, get it out of my system, then come back up, compose myself. And
my kids don't yell at me, so maybe they don't feel comfortable.
I'm being
that,
extreme.
No, I hear
they
you.
don't do
But
that.
I know. So I'll share this story, and if my daughter listens, I don't know if she'll appreciate it or not. But she has an event at school where I was unaware of, so I will not be able to be there because you and I are traveling out of town on teaching, and it's not gonna happen. I can't change that, and I felt so bad. And I told her, I'm like, I feel horrible for missing this. I promise your next year, she has 2 more years of high school. Tell me the beginning of the year, all the dates, I'll plug them in. I'll work around that. I'll make it happen. But I felt horrible. And I was to the point where you and I were talking about changing travel plans and flight, and just so I can try and make some of it. And it was, she didn't cry, she didn't yell, she didn't do anything, but I know
it was hurt.
And I love my daughter to death because I was sitting on the stairs just kind of soaking my own misery for a little bit. My wife came over and kind of let me vent a little bit, and she was awesome in telling me that I'm a good dad and all that sort of good stuff. But then I went to talk my boys to sleep, and when I came out, my daughter was there, and all she did was come and hug me. The biggest hug I ever got from her.
That's awesome.
Everything was good in the world.
I gotta bribe my daughter for hugs.
Now my daughter's a hugger.
She's older. I think when my daughter gets a little older and appreciates what daddy is and does, I'll get some hugs.
I'll hug you.
Oh yeah, that's different though. That's a different kind of hug.
Yeah, you're not my dad.
We're going on another topic here.
But yeah, family, finances, business. All
the battles are endless, right? And then we're not even talking about our each personal internal battles, right? Because we've defined that, right? That everybody's a warrior in their own respect,
right?
And a battle is not necessarily the physical battle on a battlefield, right?
Yep.
That's everyone, whether it's a traumatic event, you know, family issues, whatever it is, everyone is fighting a battle at some point or another.
Yep.
So you don't have to be some tier 1 warrior,
right?
Battle,
and far from me to give leadership advice or any kind of growth, you know, life skills or anything like that. I'm not a life coach, but I would say that if I got anything from my experience as an operator and so forth, you know, every battle you go in with a battle plan, right? You get whatever intelligence you can, you assess your assets, your resources, you come up with a strategy and tactics that base off of your skills and assets, and then you execute. And if I was to tell anybody anything, is that's how you got to approach every day. Even, you know, at our age, you know, mid 40s, every day is a different battle. And I wake up every day, and one of my morning processes, rituals, whatever you want to call it, is I write down, okay, one thing I have to accomplish today. Just one thing, because I don't want to be overwhelmed, right? Because some people write a to-do list of like 20 things. And I have to-do lists with like 20 some things, right? But there is one thing that I absolutely have to do today. And that is the main focus. And then I'm figuring out, okay, what do I need to do in order to accomplish that? And I think I've been doing that for about a month and a half now. And it had such a tremendous effect on my productivity.
I believe it.
I mean, you've
I mean,
seen
I've
me.
seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
I think we've been able to accomplish a lot in a month, and just the growth of the company, all the steps that we're taking now, laying our foundation for the next jump up. Because I'm determined to get a yacht, man.
Yeah, I'm determined to
Be a first
mate.
mate, whatever.
Yes, I'll be your seaman.
All right. Sometimes I have nothing, and I'm frustrated because I don't like.
Dude, it's like Tourette's. It's almost like Tourette's.
Right.
Like
It is.
I can't help it.
We talked about fitness and health last week, so I don't want to dwell on that too much.
But,
that's another battle.
As we start wrapping this up, because you haven't done it, right? You kind of asked me the question. So, what is your?
I talked about it. I said
no. You talked about it, yes. But when you hear Silver Savage, what is the Silver Savage? What is a savage to you?
Oh, you know what? A savage is someone that doesn't quit. That's really what it comes down to. Is that perseverance to keep going. And as we spend the last 40 minutes defining battles, to each person it's something different. You and I come from the tactical world, but there are listeners that are listening to this podcast that have never been that. They're in the corporate world. They're on businesses, they're professionals, whatever it is, right? And they run into obstacles day in and day out. It may not be somebody pointing a gun at them. It may be making a deadline. It may be paying a bill, whatever it is. And they have a choice to make at that point. Okay, the choice is I can quit, can go find another job. Entrepreneurship is hard. Talk for experience. There's been plenty of times where I wanted to throw in the towel and said, F it, I can go work for somebody else. And, been offered several positions by several organizations that hired us and then came to me and said, just come work for us. I wouldn't have to worry about anybody else and would have been great, benefits and all. But I'd be miserable.
Right.
And the decision they have to make, as did I, is do I quit or do I keep going? So whatever the battle is, whether it's professional, personal, you have relationship issues, your kids, right? If it's fitness, just don't give up. So for me, a savage is someone that keeps fighting and keeps pushing forward no matter what stands in their way.
Yeah, amen to that. And not only that, we're never alone, right? It's a community. Right. This is one of the reasons why we started Silver
Savage. Exactly.
I reach out to you for ideas, for anything, advice, which isn't always the greatest, but still.
My advice? I think my advice is pretty good. But you don't reach out enough. That's a problem. You reach out too late.
I reach out too late, but I'm working on that. But now I know that there's other savages out there that I can reach out to.
Yep.
And
they can reach to us.
Yes. And that's one of the biggest things I think, people need to realize, especially as you get older, because as we get older, we think, well, I've already been there. I've done that. I don't need anybody's help. And nothing could be further from the truth, because somebody's been where we're at that moment already, and they can guide us through and push us forward. Yep. So I think that's a big deal. One of the reasons why Silver Savages exist, right? And why we grow from that same community as we're trying to grow the community as well. So it's not just the individual. It should be more Silver Savages,
right?
Not the Silver Savage.
Is this the time to tell people about some of our plans about doing our own internal community with?
I would say so. The league,
private events, and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that. We're working on it right now. It's going to be a group within a group for those that have been following for a while and keep reaching out to us. We're going to start some stuff just for you. So
yeah, think of like the Boy Scouts, but
better
for men.
No brownies.
I mean, it'll be legal in July, so certain type of brownies.
Anyways, there was one more thing I wanted to say. Now I lost my train of thought. We settled the community. It's important, and we're gonna keep working on that. And people should be able to reach out to us. And one more thing I wanted to say, talking about community, I want to actually recognize a couple of our listeners who reached out to us and just provided feedback. And if you're listening and you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just Silver Savage on YouTube. You can find us easily. If you don't follow us on Instagram, go ahead. It's Silver. Is it underscore or dash? I can't remember. It's either underscore or dash Savage 45. Just the median age of 40s. And Please give us a rating. 5 stars would be great. If it's anything less than that, we may have to hunt you down, find you, and punish you for that. But if you can give us a liking, and if you can leave a comment, please do. And questions.
And give us topics to talk about.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
if we don't know what we're talking about, we'll
We have
talk
no
about
idea.
it.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk about dildos for squirrels, which somebody brought up, I don't have a lot of experience with that.
No, that makes absolutely no sense. But we can give a little adumbrating for the next podcast. Sorry, foreshadowing.
A little what?
Foreshadowing. We're gonna be schooled.
Oh, schooled, yes. So this is an idea that came up by somebody else, and
see how old we really are.
Yep. So we're gonna learn some new terminologies and what the youngins are talking about.
Yeah, tested by the future.
Tested and failed in advance, but it'd be funny. But yeah, I wanna recognize a couple people. So Ryan Hubbard, who was kind enough to send us a great comment, and we posted it on our social media with his permission. He seems to be getting a lot from our conversations, and we appreciate that. That's what it's all about. That's a community. And the other one is Tony Manuel, also, who been kind enough to send us pictures of him listening to the podcast and share his comments and support. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and just recently, my battle buddy from the Marine Corps.
Oh yeah, he just sent a text yesterday. Yeah, that was awesome.
I call him Spano, Daniel Pierce. But yeah, he reached out. I was totally surprised from the email, but he said he enjoyed the podcast as well.
That's awesome.
He looks forward to them.
So guys,
hopefully we'll have them on in the future.
Yeah, keep that communication open, guys. Send us messages, reach out to us via our social media channels, and
yeah, if you ever want to join us on a podcast too, if you think you got some knowledge to spit, let us know.
This can go in so many different ways.
I like it.
What
was it called again?
ASMR.
ASMR.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's ASMR.
Is it like this? I don't know. All right, guys. Have a good night, everybody. Till next week.
Later.